Get your ghetto ass away from here. This is for real people, Officer James. Harris's words slice through the morning air as he confronts a Hispanic woman in an expensive business suit outside the Dallas Federal Courthouse. Before she can respond, he grabs her arm. Officer, I belong here. Linda Carter begins calmly, like, hell you do. Harris signals his partner with a sharp whistle. Robert Lewis, help me remove this trash. Both officers seize her arms and drag her backward across the concrete. Her leather briefcase scrapes against the ground as her heels struggle for grip. Courthouse employees freeze in doorways, phones already recording as they watch a professionally dressed woman being hauled away like a criminal. Linda does not fight back. She does not scream, she simply maintains her dignity as two grown men treat her like garbage in front of the very building where justice is supposed to live. The courtroom feels heavy with tension as Officer James Harris adjusts his uniform and takes the witness stand. His lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Michael Grant, approaches with the confidence of someone who's defended plenty of cops before Officer Harris. Can you tell the court about your experience in training? Grant begins. Harris straightens up, his chest puffed with pride. 16 years with courthouse security, sir. I've worked the night shift 6 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. for the past decade. I know every inch of this building, every protocol, every potential threat. And on the morning in question, were you working your regular shift? No, sir. Officer Peterson called in sick with food poisoning. I was asked to cover the morning shift as an emergency replacement. Harris's voice carries the tone of a man doing everyone a favor. I've only worked mornings maybe 5 times in my entire career. Grant nods sympathetically. So you weren't familiar with the daytime personnel and routines? Exactly, the night shift is different. We deal with cleaning crews, maintenance, and emergency repairs during the day. You've got all lawyers, clerks, judges coming and going. I don't know their faces because I'm usually heading home when they're arriving. Harris shifts in his seat, warming to his story now. I've seen maybe 2 Hispanic judges in my 16 years here, both older gentlemen, Judge Garcia and Judge Diaz. But this woman, he shakes his head dismissively. She didn't look like any judge I'd ever seen. Describe what you observed that morning around 6:30 a.m. I see this woman approaching the restricted entrance. That's the judge's only access point. She's dressed nice enough. I'll give her that. But something felt off. Harris's eyes narrow as he recalls the scene. In my experience, people who belong somewhere don't hesitate. They don't look around nervously. They don't act evasive, and this woman was acting evasive. Oh, absolutely. When I approached her and explained she could not use that entrance, she got defensive, immediately started making demands, claiming she belonged there. That's exactly what troublemakers say when they're trying to talk their way into places they don't belong. Michael Grant walks closer to the jury box. What happened next? James Harris leans forward, his voice taking on a more serious tone. She became increasingly agitated and resistant, kept insisting she had business in the restricted area but could not provide proper identification or authorization. In my 16 years of experience, that's a major red flag. Did you attempt to verify her identity? Of course I did. I asked for a courthouse ID. Judicial credentials, anything to prove she belonged there. She could not provide any of it. Harris spreads his hands as if the conclusion is obvious. Look, I do not make assumptions based on appearance. I go by protocol. No ID, no access, period. What about the physical removal? Harris's expression grows stern. The woman refused multiple lawful orders to leave the restricted area. She was becoming disruptive, raising her voice, attracting attention from other early arrivals. I called for backup because the situation was escalating. And Officer Robert Lewis responded, "That's right. Lewis has been my partner for 3 years. He can confirm everything I am saying. When someone refuses lawful orders and becomes non-compliant, we have to escort them from the premises. It's standard security protocol for maintaining order and safety. Grant pauses dramatically. Officer Harris, did you use excessive force? Absolutely not. We used the minimum force necessary to remove a non-compliant individual from a restricted area. She was escorted, not brutalized, to the public area where she belonged. Harris's voice carries righteous indignation. We followed every protocol in the book. Why did you not simply call the courthouse administration to verify her identity? Harris looks genuinely puzzled by the question, sir. At 6:30 a.m. Administration is not open yet. The building is operating on minimal security staff. If everyone who claimed they belong somewhere could just demand we call around and verify their stories, we would never maintain proper security. In your professional opinion, did you handle this situation appropriately? Without question, I protected courthouse security, followed established protocols, and treated the individual with the same professional standards I apply to everyone. I have handled hundreds of similar situations over 16 years. This was textbook crowd control, but then defense attorney Patricia Hall stands for cross-examination, and Harris's confident demeanor flickers slightly. Officer Harris, you mentioned you have worked nights for a decade. When was the last time you familiarized yourself with daytime judicial personnel? Harris hesitates. Well, that is not typically part of my responsibilities, so you would not know if new judges had been appointed recently. The night shift does not get briefed on administrative changes, unless it affects our specific duties. Patricia Hall pulls out a document. Are you aware that Judge Linda Carter was officially appointed to this courthouse 4 weeks ago? Harris's face tightens. I was not informed of that. No, would not checking personnel rosters be part of basic security protocol? We have our assigned areas and responsibilities. I will focus on my job. Your job is to recognize authorized personnel. Correct? The confidence is draining from Harris's voice. Within my normal scope of duties, yes. And yet you made no effort to verify whether Miss Carter might be authorized personnel before physically removing her. Harris's jaw clenches. She did not present proper identification. Did you ask what type of identification she had? A long pause. She should have known to present courthouse credentials. That is not what I asked, Officer Harris. Did you specifically ask what identification she carried? Another pause longer. This time I followed. Standard protocol. Hall sets down her papers. Officer Harris, in 16 years of experience, how many times have you physically removed someone from courthouse premises? Harris shifts uncomfortably. I do not keep exact counts, approximately maybe 15, 20 times. And how? 20. Many of those individuals were Hispanic women in professional attire. Grant objects, but the damage is visible on Harris's face. The confident officer who began his testimony now looks like a man realizing his story has holes he had not considered. Hall continues relentlessly. You testified that you do not make assumptions based on appearance. But is it not true that you immediately assumed Miss Carter did not belong based solely on seeing her approach the entrance? I observed suspicious behavior. What behavior? Walking toward a door. Harris's voice rises defensively. She looked out of place, out of place. How? The courtroom falls silent as Harris realizes he is just contradicted his own testimony about not making appearance-based assumptions. His face rains as he struggles to find an answer that does not sound exactly like what it is. Racial profiling with a badge. I used my professional judgment based on 16 years of experience. But the damage is done. The confident officer has become a man whose story is unraveling thread by thread, and everyone in the courtroom can see it happening in real time. Linda Carter rises from her seat with a grace that commands attention. She moves to the witness stand not like someone seeking justice, but like someone who belongs in this courtroom in ways the audience does not yet understand. Her voice, when she speaks, carries the measured cadence of someone intimately familiar with legal proceedings. Please state your name for the record, attorney. Patricia Hall, begins Linda. Catherine Carter. Her voice is clear, professional, unshaken by the morning's events. Miss Carter, can you tell the court about your morning routine on the day in question? Linda adjusted her posture slightly. Her hands folded calmly in her lap. I arrived at the courthouse at approximately 6:30 a.m. As is my usual practice, I prefer to arrive early to review my morning preparation and ensure everything is properly organized for the day ahead. Your morning preparation, yes, I have specific procedures I follow before beginning my daily responsibility. It requires quiet time to review case materials, check scheduling, and mentally prepare for the tasks ahead. The way she speaks about procedures and scheduling suggests someone with significant authority over their own agenda. And why did you choose to use the main entrance that morning instead of other entrances? Linda's expression shows a flicker of frustration, quickly controlled. The electronic access system was malfunctioning. My usual entry point was not operational. So I was forced to use the main entrance. It was inconvenient, but I assumed it would be a minor delay. Your usual entry point, yes, I typically use a more private access route that allows me to reach my work area without navigating through the public areas of the building. Privacy and efficiency are important when you have significant responsibilities. Hall moves closer to the witness stand. Describe your interaction with Officer Harris. Linda's composure never wavers, but her voice carries subtle steel. Officer Harris approached me with immediate hostility before I could explain my presence. He made degrading assumptions about why I was there. His language was not just unprofessional, it was deliberately dehumanizing. Can you be more specific? He called me ghetto trash and told me to find the welfare office when I attempted to explain that I belonged there. He became increasingly aggressive and dismissive. Officer Harris never asked for my identification. He never inquired about my purpose. He simply decided, based on looking at me, that I had no legitimate reason to be there. What happened when you tried to explain? I remained calm and attempted to de-escalate the situation. I told him I had business there and belonged in the building. Linda's eyes flashed with controlled anger. I was dragged across concrete like a criminal, while my colleagues watched from windows and doorways. The courtroom stirs at the word colleagues, though its significance is not immediately clear to most observers. Did you resist the officers? Absolutely not. Despite the humiliation and physical discomfort, I maintained my dignity. Resisting would have only escalated an already inappropriate situation. Her voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions under pressure. Sometimes the most powerful response to injustice is to remain composed and let the truth speak for itself. Hall walks toward the jury. Miss Carter, you mentioned you had business at the courthouse that morning. Can you elaborate? Linda pauses, choosing her words carefully. I had professional obligations that required my presence at precisely 9:00 a.m. These obligations involve significant responsibilities that affect multiple people's lives and require extensive preparation. And these obligations were scheduled in advance. Yes, for several weeks, my morning schedule is typically planned far in advance. Due to the nature of my work, missing or being late for these obligations would have serious consequences for many people. What type of work requires such precise scheduling? Another meaningful pause work that involves making decisions that affect people's futures work, that requires absolute punctuality and thorough preparation. Work that demands both legal expertise and moral authority. The way she describes her work suggests something far more significant than a typical courthouse employee, though she is careful not to reveal too much. Miss Carter, you seem very familiar with courthouse procedures and protocols. Can you explain why I have spent considerable time in courtrooms throughout my career? I understand how these institutions function, what is expected of personnel, and how security should properly balance safety with respect for individuals' rights. Her knowledge goes deeper than that of a typical visitor or even attorney. And in your experience, was Officer Harris's behavior appropriate? Linda's voice becomes firmer. Officer Harris violated every principle of professional security. He made assumptions based on prejudice, failed to follow basic verification procedures, and escalated a situation that required only simple communication. She pauses, her legal expertise showing more importantly. He failed to recognize that true security comes from treating all people with dignity. While properly verifying credentials, did his actions affect your ability to fulfill your professional obligations significantly? The incident delayed my arrival to my work area and caused unnecessary stress before I needed to perform duties requiring complete focus and clear judgment. The weight in her voice suggests these duties are more important than anyone realizes. Michael Grant, Harris's attorney, begins his cross-examination with skepticism. Miss Carter, is it not true that you could have avoided this entire situation by simply presenting identification? Linda's response is measured but pointed. I should not have been required to prove my right to exist in a public building. Officer Harris never asked for identification. He made assumptions and acted on prejudice. But surely you understand security concerns. I understand security very well. I also understand the difference between legitimate security measures and discriminatory harassment. Her voice carries the authority of someone who has made such distinctions professionally. You claim to have professional obligations at 9:00 a.m. What exactly is your profession? Linda meets his gaze steadily. I work in the justice system, ensuring that legal proceedings are conducted fairly and according to law. That is rather vague. Are you an attorney? A slight smile crosses Linda's face. My role in the justice system requires extensive legal knowledge. Yes, but you are not answering the question directly. I am answering as precisely as the question allows. There is something almost regal in her composure, as if she is accustomed to controlling conversations rather than being controlled by them. Michael Grant presses harder. Why will you simply not state your job title? Linda's pause is pregnant with meaning, because my job title would fundamentally change how this courtroom views everything that happened this morning. And I believe Officer Harris's actions should be judged on their own merits, not on the basis of who I turned out to be. The courtroom buzzes with speculation. Who is this woman whose identity could change everything? What position does she hold that would transform the entire narrative? But Linda Carter is not ready to reveal that yet. She sits with the quiet confidence of someone holding the ultimate trump card, waiting for exactly the right moment to play it 4 weeks earlier. Chief Judge Elizabeth Morgan raised her right hand. Before a packed courthouse ceremony hall, please welcome our newest judicial appointment, the Honorable Linda Catherine Carter. Linda stood in judicial robes for the first time, taking the oath that transformed her from prosecutor to judge. Local media captured the moment, courthouse staff applauded, and her swearing-in became part of official courthouse records. Yet James Harris, working his usual night shift, never saw any of it. Now, in her home study lined with Columbia law diplomas and prosecutorial awards, Linda reviews a file that could change everything. Her phone buzzes. Linda, have you decided about pursuing this formally? Chief Judge Morgan's voice carries concern, Elizabeth. This is not just about what happened to me. Linda sets down security footage stills. It is about a pattern that needs exposing but filing charges against courthouse security. While you are our newest judge, which is exactly why I must do this if I do not challenge this behavior. Now I am endorsing it. Linda pulls out a thick manual with her annotations. I helped draft these courthouse security protocols in my previous role as legal advisor. Harris violated 6 different procedures. Harris claims he did not know you were. That is the problem. He never asked. He saw a Hispanic woman and made assumptions after the call. Linda opens her laptop and reviews security footage obtained through Discovery. The videos reveal disturbing patterns spanning months timestamp. March 15th. Dr. Thomas Bennett, prominent civil rights attorney, aggressively questioned his courthouse presence. Harris demands to see Bennett's bar license, something never requested from Caucasian attorneys. Timestamp April 3rd. Karen Mitchell, African-American court reporter, stopped and interrogated about using the staff entrance she has accessed for 3 years. Timestamp May 20th. Professor James Kim, Asian-American law professor, was forced to provide multiple forms of identification before being allowed to attend a public hearing. Video after video shows the same pattern: Harris treating people of color as threats, while waving white visitors through with minimal scrutiny. Linda cross-references these incidents with complaint records. What emerges is troubling. 7 informal complaints filed against Harris over 2 years, all dismissed without investigation. Every complainant was a person of color. She reviews Harris's personnel files, performance reviews, praise his vigilance in maintaining proper courthouse atmosphere. Supervisor notes commend his proactive security measures that somehow only target minorities. The language is carefully coded, but the pattern is unmistakable. Her assistant, Daniel Rivera, arrives with additional evidence. Judge Carter, here are the phone records you requested. One sets down transcripts Harris's conversations with colleagues show concerning language about courthouse visitors. The records reveal breakroom discussions where Harris jokes about keeping certain types in their place and refers to professional Hispanic women as probably here for child support court training. Records show Harris has not attended diversity or civil rights education in 5 years. Rivera continues, he consistently finds excuses to skip required sessions and complaint resolution. All security complaints are reviewed by Sergeant Garcia, Harris's supervisor and personal friend for 12 years. No independent oversight exists. Linda studies the evidence methodically. Audio recordings capture Harris using racial slurs in the courthouse breakroom. Witness statements from courthouse employees describe a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Spanning years, security footage shows Harris's double standard in action: courtesy for white visitors, suspicion for everyone else. The most damning evidence comes from Harris's own incident reports. His language reveals his mindset, describing professional Hispanic women as aggressive and non-compliant for simply existing in courthouse spaces, while characterizing similar behavior from white individuals as assertive or confident. She discovers Harris's history includes 2 previous excessive force complaints, both involving black defendants' family members, both dismissed with minimal review. As Linda organizes the evidence, the scope becomes clear. This is not about one officer's bad morning. It's about institutional racism hiding behind security protocols enabled by supervisors who value keeping the peace over protecting civil rights. She looks at her swearing-in photo, remembering her oath to uphold justice impartially. tomorrow offers the chance to prove those were not empty words. The irony strikes her. Harris's actions that morning will expose the very system that protected him for years. His assumption that she was powerless will ultimately reveal just how powerful she really is. But more importantly, this case will ensure that no one else endures what she experienced. Being dragged away from their own workplace simply for existing while Hispanic justice. Linda realizes sometimes comes through the most unexpected reversals of power. Attorney Patricia Hall approaches the evidence table with the confidence of someone holding dynamite. She lifts a tablet displaying security footage that will shatter Officer Harris's carefully constructed narrative. Your Honor, I would like to present exhibit a courthouse security footage from the past 6 months showing Officer Harris's interactions with various courthouse visitors. The courtroom's large screen flickers to life. The first video shows a timestamp from 3 months earlier. Dr. Thomas Bennett, a distinguished Asian American attorney in an expensive suit, approaches the courthouse entrance carrying a briefcase identical to Linda's. Harris's voice crackles through the speakers. "Hold up there, sir. Where do you think you are going?" Dr. Bennett stops politely. "I am here for the Morrison hearing. I am counsel for the defense. I am going to need to see some identification. Cannot be too careful these days." The footage shows Harris examining Dr. Bennett's bar. License, driver's license, and business cards for nearly 5 minutes. While a white attorney walks past unchallenged, Harris's body language is identical to his interaction with Linda. Aggressive posturing, dismissive gestures, treating a respected professional like a potential threat. "Can you explain this interaction?" Officer Harris Hall asks. Harris shifts uncomfortably. "That was standard security protocol. We verify credentials for everyone." Hall clicks to the next video. Same day, 20 minutes later. A young white woman in casual clothes approaches the same entrance. "Morning," Miss Harris says cheerfully, stepping aside to let her pass. "Actually, I am not sure where I am supposed to go," the woman says. "I am here for jury duty, but this is my first time." "No problem at all. Just head to the second floor. They will take good care of you up there. No identification requested, no credential verification, no aggressive questioning." "Is this your standard protocol, officer?" Harris Hall's voice drips with irony. The videos continue, each one more damning than the last. Karen Mitchell, the African-American court reporter, being interrogated about her staff entrance access while white employees stream past unquestioned. Professor James Kim, an Asian-American law professor, was forced to provide 3 forms of identification to attend a public hearing, while white observers entered freely. Harris's face grows redder with each video. His attorney objects repeatedly. But the pattern is undeniable. These are isolated incidents taken out of context. Harris starts isolated. Hall interrupts. "We have 17 documented instances over 6 months. Shall we watch all of them?" But the real bombshell comes when Hall introduces the phone recordings. Harris's voice fills the courtroom, captured during break-room conversations. "You should have seen this uppity Hispanic woman today, acting like she owned the place. I had to put her in her place real quick. These people think they can just walk in anywhere like they belong. That is why we are here, to keep standards up. I do not care how fancy they dress. I can spot trouble from a mile away. It is all about keeping the right kind of people in and the wrong kind out." The courtroom erupts. Harris's face goes pale as he hears his own words played back. His attorney frantically scribbles notes, knowing their defense is crumbling in real time. Hall calls her first witness, Dr. Thomas Bennett himself. "Dr. Bennett, you are a partner at Morrison, Carter and Associates." "Correct, that is right. 30 years practicing law. 15 of those as a federal prosecutor. Can you describe your interaction with Officer Harris 3 months ago?" Dr. Bennett's voice carries quiet dignity tinged with frustration. I was treated like a criminal for the simple act of entering a courthouse, where I have practiced law for decades. Officer Harris questioned my credentials, demanded multiple forms of identification, and spoke to me with a tone of suspicion. I have never experienced from courthouse security. How did this make you feel? Humiliated, angry, but mostly concerned that if this is how he treats a known attorney, what does he do to ordinary citizens who cannot defend themselves? Hall's next witness is Karen Mitchell, the court reporter. Miss Mitchell, how long have you worked at this courthouse? 8 years. I have been using the staff entrance for my entire tenure here. Describe your interaction with Officer Harris. Karen's voice shakes slightly. He stopped me like I was trespassing in my own workplace. He demanded to know why I was using the restricted entrance and made me prove I worked there. Meanwhile, 3 white court clerks walked past without any questions. Did this affect your work? I was late to a deposition because of the delay, but worse, I felt like I had to justify my existence in a place where I have worked professionally for nearly a decade. The pattern becomes undeniable as witness after witness testifies to identical treatment. Each person of color stopped, questioned, and was forced to prove their legitimacy, while white courthouse visitors passed freely. Hall introduces Harris's training records next. Officer Harris, when was your last diversity training session? It has been a while, 5 years. According to these records, you have missed 17 mandatory sensitivity training sessions, claiming schedule conflicts. Each time my shift makes it difficult, yet you managed to attend firearms training, overtime certification, and 3 professional development seminars during the same period. Harris has no answer. The most devastating evidence comes from Sergeant Garcia, Harris's supervisor, called as a hostile witness. Sergeant Garcia, how many complaints have been filed against Officer Harris in the past 2 years? Garcia squirms. I would have to check the exact number. I will help you. 7 formal complaints, all from people of color, all dismissed without investigation. Can you explain this pattern? Officer Harris is a good officer. Sometimes people misunderstand. Standard security procedures misunderstand? Or do you mean they correctly understand discriminatory treatment disguised as procedure? Hall presents Garcia's own evaluation notes. Harris shows excellent judgment in identifying potential security risks and maintains high standards for courthouse access. When you wrote identifying potential security risks, what did you mean? Garcia's pause speaks volumes. People who seem out of place, and how do you determine who seems out of place in a public courthouse? Another telling pause, professional judgment based on experience that somehow only flags people of color as suspicious. The courtroom buzzes as the institutional nature of the problem becomes clear. This is not just one rogue officer, it is a system that has enabled and protected discriminatory behavior for years. Hall's final piece of evidence is a statistical analysis prepared by a civil rights expert. The numbers are staggering. Harris stops and questions people of color at a rate 13 times higher than white visitors. He requests additional identification from minorities, 89% of the time versus 3%. For white individuals, physical altercations occur only with people of color. These statistics do not lie, Hall tells the jury. They reveal a clear pattern of racial profiling that has been enabled, protected, and rewarded by a broken system. Harris's attorney attempts damage control during the redirect. Officer Harris, do you consider yourself a racist? Absolutely not. I treat everyone fairly, but the evidence has already spoken louder than any denial. The videos, recordings, statistics, and witness testimony create an overwhelming picture of systematic discrimination hiding behind the badge. As the evidence presentation concludes, the courtroom understands they have witnessed something bigger than one morning's incident. They have seen how institutional racism operates in plain sight, protected by those in power and enabled by a culture of willful blindness. Harris sits at the defendant's table, no longer the confident officer who began this trial. He has been exposed as the embodiment of a system that judges people by their skin color while claiming to serve justice equally, but the biggest revelation is still to come. Attorney Hall approaches Linda for what everyone assumes will be routine follow-up testimony. The courtroom has settled into a predictable rhythm. No one anticipates that the next 2 minutes will rewrite everything. Miss Carter, you mentioned professional obligations that morning. Can you specify these obligations? Linda adjusts her posture, commanding greater attention. Her voice carries new authority. I was scheduled to preside over the 9:00 a.m. criminal docket. I needed to arrive early to review case files and prepare for the morning's proceedings. The word preside hangs in the air like lightning before thunder. Jury members lean forward, not quite processing what they have heard. When you say preside, can you clarify your role? I am the Honorable Judge Linda Catherine Carter, appointed to this courthouse 4 weeks ago. I was arriving to perform my duties as presiding judge of Criminal Court Division C. The courtroom explodes, gasps echo from the gallery. Jury members' mouths fall open. Harris's face drains of color as the magnitude crashes over him. His attorney drops his pen, staring in disbelief. Judge Johnson pounds his gavel repeatedly. Order, order in this courtroom. Court clerk Susan Wallace stands. Shakily, Your Honor, Judge Carter was indeed scheduled for the 9:00 a.m. criminal docket that morning. She was supposed to be in this very courtroom. The irony hits like a physical force. Harris prevented a judge from entering her own courthouse to preside over her own courtroom. The woman he dragged across concrete and called ghetto trash outranks everyone except the Chief Judge. Harris's world crumbles visibly. His hands shake as he realizes he did not just assault a citizen, he assaulted a sitting judge. His 16 years of experience failed to recognize the newest judiciary member. His trained eye for troublemakers missed one of the building's most important people. Judge Carter was not visiting the courthouse hall. Continues, savoring each word. She was reporting to work to her job as a judge. In the very system Officer Harris claimed to protect, the revelation recontextualizes every piece of evidence, those professional obligations, sentencing hearings, and criminal trials. Her courthouse familiarity. She helped write the procedures, her calm authority. She is trained to make life-changing decisions under pressure. Harris's attorney whispers frantically, but Harris seems catatonic. The confident officer has been replaced by a man confronting career-ending reality. Judge Carter. How did Officer Harris's actions affect your judicial duties? Linda's response carries judicial weight. The criminal docket was delayed 50 minutes while I recovered from the altercation and changed into judicial robes. Defendants in custody waited in holding cells because Officer Harris decided I did not look like I belonged in my own workplace. Real consequences emerged: defendants, victims, families affected. Because Harris's prejudices prevented a judge from working. Did you consider revealing your identity during the incident? I should not have to prove my worth to exist in public. Spaces. Officer Harris's behavior should be judged on its merits, not on who I turned out to be. Linda pauses meaningfully. Every person deserves dignity regardless of position or power. Stunned silence fills the courtroom as Harris's mistakes' full scope sinks in. He did not just assault a citizen, he assaulted a judge. He did not just make a professional error. He committed a federal crime against the judiciary. He did not just embarrass himself, he embarrassed the entire courthouse. Before its newest judge, Harris finally speaks, voice barely audible. I did not know. No, Linda responds with quiet steel. You did not ask. You saw a Hispanic woman and assumed she did not belong. Your 16 years of experience taught you everything except basic human dignity. The revelation transforms everything. What began as a civil rights case has become unprecedented. A sitting judge seeking justice for her own assault by courthouse security. The power dynamic has not just shifted, it is completely inverted, Officer James. Harris, who dragged Judge Linda Carter from her own courthouse, now sits seeking mercy from the very system he claimed to protect. The hunter became the hunted. And justice revealed its ultimate irony. The woman he thought powerless holds more power than he ever imagined. The revelation that Linda Carter is a sitting judge has shattered Harris's defense. But the legal proceedings must continue. Judge Johnson calls for a brief recess to allow emotions to settle. But when court reconvenes, the atmosphere has fundamentally changed. Everyone now understands they are witnessing something unprecedented. A federal judge pursuing justice for her own assault by courthouse security. The power dynamics have not just shifted, they have been obliterated and rebuilt entirely. Attorney Hall approaches Harris for cross-examination with renewed purpose. Harris, who began this trial with swagger, now looks like a condemned man awaiting execution. Officer Harris, you have just learned that you physically assaulted a sitting federal judge. How does that make you feel? Harris's voice cracks. I am devastated. I had no idea. You had no idea because you never asked. You saw a Hispanic woman and immediately assumed she was a threat. Correct? No, that is not, Officer Harris. In your 16 years of experience, how many white women have you physically dragged from courthouse premises? Harris's attorney objects. But Judge Johnson allows the question. Harris's silence speaks volumes. I will take that as 0. How many Hispanic women? Another crushing silence. The record shows 5, including Judge Carter. Can you explain this pattern? Harris's face rained. Each situation was different. How different skin color triggering different responses. I do not see color. Officer Harris, you just physically assaulted a federal judge. Because you do not see color, you prevented her from entering her own workplace because you are colorblind. The courtroom watches. Harris squirms as his standard defenses crumble under the weight of reality. Hall pulls out Harris's personnel file. Your training records show you have missed 17 mandatory diversity sessions. Why schedule conflicts yet? You managed to attend every firearms training overtime certification and 3 professional development seminars during the same period. Harris has no answer. Officer Harris, do you believe Judge Carter looked like a criminal? That morning, the situation was confusing. A professionally dressed woman carrying an expensive briefcase approaching a courthouse entrance. Confused you without proper identification. You never asked for identification. You immediately assumed she did not belong. Is that not correct? Harris's voice barely registers. Yes, the admission hangs in the air like a death nail. Harris has just confessed to exactly what everyone suspected he judged. Judge Carter based solely on her appearance. Hall presses her advantage. Officer Harris, what specifically about Judge Carter made you think she was a threat? Harris's mouth opens and closes without sound. Any answer he gives will expose his racial bias. Was it her expensive suit, her professional demeanor, her calm voice? What about Judge Carter screaming welfare case to you? I made an error in judgment. An error in judgment, or a revelation of your true beliefs about Hispanic women. Harris's attorney objects desperately, but the damage is complete. Harris has been exposed not just as a racist, but as someone whose racism is so ingrained. He assaulted a federal judge without a second thought. Hall delivers the final blow. Officer Harris Judge Carter spent 16 years as a prosecutor before her judicial appointment. She has put more criminals behind bars than you have ever encountered yet. You saw her as the criminal. Why Harris breaks completely? I do not know. She did not look like. Like what, Officer Harris? Like a judge? What does a judge look like in your mind? The question echoes through the courtroom as Harris realizes he has just admitted that his mental image of authority does not include Hispanic women. Officer Harris, do you believe you are fit to serve in courthouse security? I have served honorably for 16 years. You just assaulted a federal judge. You have been exposed as someone who systematically targets people of color. You have admitted to making assumptions based on appearance. How is any of that honorable service? Harris's world has collapsed entirely. The confident officer who began this trial is now a broken man whose career, reputation, and future have been destroyed by his own actions and admissions. No further questions, Your Honor. As Hall returns to her seat, the courtroom understands they have witnessed the complete dismantling of not just one man's defense, but an entire system of institutional racism. Harris's cross-examination has revealed the ugly truth about how bias operates in supposedly neutral institutions. The man who thought he was protecting the courthouse from undesirable elements has been revealed as the undesirable element. Himself, his 16 years of experience could not save him from the consequences of assaulting someone he assumed was powerless. Justice, it seems, has a perfect sense of irony. The woman Harris dragged away from her own courthouse now sits in judgment of his actions. And the hunter has definitively become the hunted. Harris's pattern of discrimination has been exposed, his credibility destroyed, and his future decided by his own admissions. Sometimes the most powerful testimony comes from the defendant's own mouth. The courtroom feels electric as both attorneys prepare their closing arguments. Everyone present knows they are witnessing legal history, a case that will be studied for decades as an example of how institutional racism operates and how justice can prevail against overwhelming odds. Prosecutor Catherine Davis approaches the jury with the gravity of someone carrying the weight of civil rights history. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you have witnessed over these past days is not just about one officer's bad decision. It is about a system that allowed, encouraged, and protected racial discrimination for years while hiding behind the badge of authority. Davis walked slowly past the jury box, making eye contact with each member. Officer James Harris did not just assault Linda Carter on that March morning. He assaulted the very principles our justice system claims to uphold. He assaulted the idea that all people deserve dignity. Regardless of their race, he assaulted the Constitution he swore to protect. The prosecutor's voice grows stronger, but here is what makes this case truly extraordinary. Officer Harris assaulted a sitting federal judge, the very embodiment of the justice system he claimed to serve. The irony is so profound it would be comedic if it were not so tragic. Davis pauses at the evidence table, gesturing toward the mountain of documentation. The evidence shows a clear pattern spanning years. Security footage revealing Harris's double-standard audio recordings, capturing his racist language, statistical analysis proving his discriminatory behavior. Witness testimony from respected professionals who suffered identical treatment. She turns back to the jury. Harris's defense has crumbled because it was built on lies. He claims he does not see color while systematically targeting people of color. He claims to follow protocol while violating every professional standard he claims. Judge Carter looked suspicious when she was simply existing while Hispanic in Dallas. The prosecutor's voice takes on moral authority. This is not about honest mistakes or split-second decisions. This is about deeply ingrained prejudice that led a trained officer to physically assault a federal judge because she did not match his racist expectations of what authority looks like. Davis approaches Harris's table, speaking directly to him. Officer Harris, your 16 years of experience taught you everything, except the most basic lesson that human dignity is not determined by skin color. Your badge gave you authority, but you used it to oppress rather than protect. She returns to face the jury. Judge Carter could have revealed her identity immediately. She could have ended this incident with 2 words, "I am Judge Carter," but she did not because she understood something. Harris never learned that justice means everyone deserves dignity, not just those with power. Davis's voice builds to crescendo. Harris violated federal civil rights laws. He committed assault under color of authority. He denied due process to a sitting judge. But most importantly, he betrayed the oath he took to serve and protect all citizens. Equally, find him guilty. Send a message that badges do not grant license to discriminate. Show that our justice system protects everyone, especially when everyone includes the judges themselves. Harris's attorney, Michael Grant, rises for what everyone knows is an impossible defense. Ladies and gentlemen, my client made mistakes. I will not pretend otherwise, but Officer James Harris is not the monster the prosecution portrays. He is a man who served faithfully for 16 years and made a terrible error in judgment. Grant's voice lacks conviction as he continues. Yes, Officer Harris should have asked for identification. Yes, he should have recognized Judge Linda Carter, but at that moment, working in an unfamiliar shift, dealing with a malfunctioning security system, he made split-second decisions based on limited information. The defense feels hollow even as Grant speaks. We ask for your mercy not because Officer Harris's actions were right, but because good people sometimes make catastrophic mistakes. A guilty verdict will destroy not just his career, but his family and future. Grant sits down, knowing his argument has failed before it began. Judge Johnson takes control for final instructions. Members of the jury, you must decide whether Officer Harris's actions constitute federal civil rights violations, assault under color of law, and denial of due process. The evidence is clear. The law is settled and the facts are undisputed. The jury deliberates for exactly 47 minutes, barely enough time to elect a foreman and take a formal vote. When they return, the foreman's voice rings with conviction. On the charge of civil rights violations under color of law. Guilty on the charge of assault and battery. Guilty on the charge of denial of due process. Guilty. Harris collapses in his chair as his attorney pats his shoulder helplessly. 16 years of career destroyed by minutes of prejudice. Judge Johnson delivers immediate consequences. Officer James Harris, you have been found guilty of federal crimes that strike at the heart of our justice system. You used your authority to oppress rather than protect, discriminated based on race while hiding behind your badge, and assaulted a federal judge. Because your prejudices blinded you to her humanity, the judge's voice carries judicial authority. You are hereby sentenced to 20 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years supervised probation. You are permanently barred from law enforcement and must complete 220 hours of community service with civil rights organizations. Additionally, this courthouse will implement the Carter Protocol mandatory bias training, independent oversight of security complaints, and zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior. Harris is LED away in handcuffs, the confident officer replaced by a convicted felon whose racism destroyed everything he claimed to protect as the courtroom empties. Judge Carter sits quietly knowing that justice has been served, not through revenge but through the very system Harris tried to corrupt. The woman he dragged across concrete has ensured that no one else will suffer the same humiliation. Power wielded properly protects the powerless. Sometimes justice requires judges to seek justice for themselves. 6 months after the verdict, the transformation is remarkable. James Harris walks through Central Park Mall in his security guard uniform, checking doors and watching for shoplifters. The man who once wielded federal authority now earns minimum wage protecting discount stores. His law enforcement career ended the moment he dragged a federal judge across courthouse concrete. Harris's nights are spent in community service at the Harper Civil Rights Center, where he faces the people his actions hurt. Former colleagues cross the street to avoid him. His pension is gone. His reputation destroyed, his future limited to whatever work he can find. With a federal conviction record, the irony follows him everywhere. The officer who thought he was keeping undesirable elements out of the courthouse has become an undesirable element himself. Meanwhile, Judge Linda Carter has become a national symbol of dignity and resilience. Her story has been featured in Time magazine, The Washington Post, and countless civil rights publications. She did not seek fame, but her courage in pursuing justice has inspired millions. The Carter Protocol, implemented nationwide, has revolutionized courthouse security. Independent oversight committees now review all discrimination complaints. Mandatory bias training occurs quarterly, not annually. Security personnel face immediate suspension for discriminatory behavior. And victims have direct access to civil rights attorneys. The numbers speak for themselves. Discrimination complaints in courthouses have increased by 40%. Not because discrimination is rising, but because people finally believe their voices will be heard. Investigation rates have jumped from 12% to 89%. Accountability has replaced cover-ups. Judge Carter's influence extends far beyond security protocols. She has become the youngest person ever appointed to the Federal Civil Rights Commission, where she advocates for systemic justice reform. Her legal scholarship on institutional racism is studied in law schools nationwide. But perhaps most importantly, her story has changed how people think about power and prejudice. The woman Harris saw as powerless revealed herself as one of the most powerful people in the building. His assumptions about who belongs in positions of authority cost him everything. Today, Judge Carter presides over her courtroom with renewed purpose. Every decision she makes honors those who suffer in silence, who endure discrimination without recourse, who are judged by their appearance rather than their character. The leather briefcase she carried that morning now sits in the Smithsonian's Civil Rights Museum, a symbol of how dignity can triumph over prejudice. Visitors read the placard. This briefcase belonged to Judge Linda Carter when she was assaulted by courthouse security for looking suspicious. It reminds us that justice sometimes requires judges to seek justice for themselves. Harris's story serves as a cautionary tale in law enforcement academies. Nationwide recruits study his case to understand how quickly prejudice can destroy careers and lives. The lesson is clear: badges grant authority, but character determines how that authority is used. Stories like Judge Carter's happen more often than we would like to admit. But most never make headlines. Most victims do not have the power to fight back. Most injustices go unreported, unpunished, and unchanged. That is why sharing these stories matters. That is why your voice matters. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to see that dignity always wins in the end. Subscribe to American Voices Uncut and ring that notification bell. Because we are committed to bringing you more stories of courage, overcoming prejudice, of justice, defeating discrimination, and of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever witnessed discrimination disguised as following protocol? Your experience could inspire our next story, because when we shine light on injustice, we make it harder for darkness to hide, and sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one others underestimate most. The story you heard today was not cleaned up. It was told exactly as it happened at American Voices Uncut. We believe that is the only way truth can live. If you felt something hit, like, comment and your reaction, and subscribe every week. We bring you voices that refuse to be silenced.